Hey everyone, welcome to the grade 10 live classes for this term. There are a lot of familiar names that popping up, so thank you to you guys for coming back again. And there's also some new names, which is awesome. You can just right now just attempt what's on the screen. But just before you go ahead with that, and before you just go ahead and I give over to your teacher today, Lee. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on in terms of the reactions. So if you all look at the bar in the bottom, there's a button that says reactions. Could everyone please just try that because it's going to be very important. Just click on the reactions button and see if you find it, and just press the emoji. Just press the thumbs up emoji if you can find it. Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up emojis popping up. Keep them coming. I'm only seeing from 3 people. Thumbs up emojis. Okay, and then if you do not see, if you cannot see anything popping up on your screen, can you just click on the chat? So on the chat, for the people that do not have the emojis bar, just manually type the chat. So if the teacher is requesting that you do a thumbs up or you do a smile or you do a thumbs down, just manually write it, go to the chat button and then click on the chat button, and then using your keyboard, just type on your emojis too, and make sure it's set to everyone. Make sure so it's set to everyone so that everyone can see. Okay, and just make sure your video is on. We want to see your smile. We want to make sure that everyone can. We want to make sure that everyone is okay, everyone is happy. And I see. Before I continue, Nolwazi, you have your hand up. Was that just to test the emojis, or you have an actual question?
It was just a test.
Okay,
It was
awesome. I'm
just a
glad it's
test.
working. I'm glad it's working. Just you can put your hand down again. And also remember, very important, keep your mic off. And then every time when you do speak or you have a question, you can turn your mic on, but always remember to turn it back off so that the other noises don't get in the way of the lesson. So yeah, I think that's it. I think Lee will add whatever I'm missing. But I think at the moment, you guys just enjoy your lesson, have fun, engage, participate, and we hope you enjoy. Over to you, Lee.
Thank you very much, Tula. Welcome, grade 10s. It's really nice to meet all of you this evening. Welcome to our functions course. We're going to be together for another 8 lessons today. We're starting with the quadratic function, and we're going to have 3 lessons on the quadratic function. And then you need to know that there's going to be a quiz on the app that you're going to have to go and complete. Okay, so make sure that you've written that down and that you're aware of it. I will try and remind you again after every single lesson, but after lesson 3, there's going to be a quiz that you guys are going to have to do on the app, and that'll give you an idea of how well you've understood what we've been through, and it'll also give me an idea of what you're doing, and if there's anything that I need to change or do a little bit better. Then there's going to be a second quiz once the course is finished. So the course finishes after the 8th lesson, and then after the 8th lesson you would then log onto the app and do another quiz. All right, so that quiz, the second one, will be on the hyperbola and on the exponential function. It's all done through multiple choice. All right, so you would just choose the appropriate multiple choice answer, whatever you thought it was meant to be. Okay, so yeah, be aware of those 2 things. The other thing that we also need to make sure that we've got every time when we start our lessons, please make sure that you've got a book or an exam pad. Please make sure that you've got pens and pencils and a calculator, because you're going to need that during your lessons. And what will happen is that each time when our lesson starts, you will see a screen similar to the one that you're seeing at the moment. Okay, so there will always be an activity called Do Now. All right, so either Tula or myself will let you in at 5 o'clock, and then you just get started on the Do Now. All right, there'll always be 2 questions. Sometimes it'll be something that's linked to what we did the previous week. Sometimes it won't be. It just depends on what it is that we're doing and what I can manage. But then the idea is you would get started on that Do Now. Once everybody's in the room at about 5 past 5, then we can get marking. We can mark the Do Now and we can get on with our lesson. Is that okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Anyway, if you hear what I'm saying and it makes sense and you're happy with that, then you can send me a thumbs up on the chat, please. Tula, I'm not seeing any thumbs ups on my chat. I don't know if it's just not working.
I'm seeing 2 pop up on my side. Could you guys just please with the thumbs up again, just so we make sure that everything is fine. Remember to type on the chat.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so I've got one from Nolwazi. That's great. Thank you, Nolwazi. Everybody else, if you could just send me a thumbs up if you've heard what I've said, please, and then we can get started.
I'm seeing them pop up from Inam, Nosisa, and just a number of students as well.
Okay. Well, I don't know why my chat isn't working so well. I've only seen one from Nolwazi, but maybe you can just keep me posted of what's in the chat, Tula, until we figure out. Okay, so I've got one from Faith. Maybe it's just much slower. I don't know. Anyway, you'll just have to keep me posted. Okay. All right, so grade 10s, the do now for today was to solve the unknown in the equations given below. And the idea is that this is something that you have already done this year. So you should have been able to answer these questions. Now, fair enough, Tula's been talking to you and I've been talking to you. So you haven't had an opportunity to look at these questions. But this is the sort of thing that we would always get started with. Is there anybody who thinks that they know what we would do with question H? Do you think you know how you would solve for y squared? If you can unmute your mic and speak to me, that would be absolutely brilliant. Zayan, do you know how you would answer this question? Palesa, what about you? Do you know how to answer question H? Okay, let's try Tsepo. Do you know how to answer question H? Okay, so I can see the message from Tula. Can't see any other messages and no one that I've called on is responding to me. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on this question, all right? If we were going to answer and solve for y in this particular case, we could do, because this is the difference of two squares, what we would need to do is we would need to factorize. So what we were supposed to do in our first step is factorize 4y squared minus 9 equals 0 into two brackets. It's difference of two squares. So that's why in the first brackets, it's 2y minus 3. In the second bracket, it's 2y plus 3. Then once we've factorized, we would say, well, either 2y minus 3 equals 0 or 2y plus 3 equals 0. So if 2y minus 3 equals 0 or 2y plus 3 equals 0, then it means that either y is equal to positive 3 over 2 or y is equal to negative 3 over 2. Okay, so similarly on the other side, if anybody did manage to answer that question, x squared minus 81, we would have taken the 81 over to the other side, made it equal to 0, factorized our difference of two squares, and again ended up with two answers. Okay, so that's really important for us in grade 10. We're going to be factorizing and solving quadratics, so there's normally going to be two answers. Okay. What I wanted us to do tonight was just talk very quickly about where everybody is in South Africa. Would you be happy to pop a note into the chat for me and just tell me which city you're in at the moment? Please share where you're at. Sayon says Cape Town, lovely. I'm in Durban. Nolwazi, you're in Pretoria. Tutuka in Johannesburg. So Galaxy A02, don't know who that is. Inam, Cape Town, lovely. Pretoria, Onatatile, okay. Faith, you in Cape Town, lovely, well done. Tandeka, Johannesburg, good. Mtuba, oh, interesting. Welcome. Welcome, Nasisa, lovely. Marziza, I can't talk right now. You in Johannesburg, I'm busy, sorry. Okay. Zanele, you in Cape Town, awesome. Oh, wow. Nialeti, you're in Johannesburg, lovely. Wow, we're all over South Africa today. Nialeti, is it cold in Johannesburg?
Yes, Miss.
Is it cold? Yes, I bet it is. And Zanele, is it cold in Cape Town? Zanele, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, brilliant. I'm so glad you can. Is it cold in Cape Town too?
It's very cold in Cape Town.
Very cold.
Especially
okay.
today.
Oh, shame. Oh, well, summer won't be too far away. Once we get to the 1st of September, it'll hopefully start warming up for all of us. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing where you are in the world or where you are in South Africa. It's really nice to have you all here this evening. Let's get on with our lesson. So the first thing that we want to talk about is sketching the quadratic function, so otherwise known as the parabola. And hopefully what you see on the screen now is something that is very familiar to you. All right, so that is this formula over here. Let me just get my pen working. That I'm drawing a block around right now, that formula over there, all right? So y equals ax squared plus q. Everybody should be familiar with this by now, and we should know exactly what the different letters in this particular formula represents. And I always like to start with discussing what x and y are there for. Does anybody know what x actually represents in this formula? You're welcome to unmute your mic, or you can put it on the chat. Does anybody know what x represents? So Zanele, do you know what x represents? Okay, so I'm not sure if you can hear me, Zanele. Okay, so I'm going to push on, all right, and hopefully you guys can hear me. X is important because X represents input, okay? Y is important because that represents output. Now, when we are talking about input and output, these are the points that make up our curve. So this is an X going in, that's the input, and Y is the output, the corresponding value that comes out. All right, so remember when we're going to plot a graph, we need to obviously make a point on the Cartesian plane. So finding a point on the Cartesian plane means knowing what the X and the Y are. So they stay as X and Y because these values change depending where on the line we are. All right. Now, A and Q are not defined by variables, right? A and Q are actually defined by numbers, by constants, right? So A is there to represent shape. And what's super important for us in grade 10 is knowing that when A is positive, and that's a way of writing when A is positive using symbols. So when A is greater than 0, your graph is going to be a smiley face. The other thing that's super important about A is to know that when A is negative, your graph is going to be a sad face. Okay, so we need to know that from the outset. So A is going to be a number. If it is a positive number, the graph is a smiley face. If it's a sad number, then the graph is a sad face. A also changes the shape of the arms. So if A is a number like 1, for example, maybe your arms look like that. But if I increase A to 2, then what it does is this, is it makes the arms, whoopsie, I'm drawing a very bad parabola, it makes the arms steeper. If I increase A to a value like 3, then it makes the arms steeper still. Okay, and it would apply the same way if it was negative. Okay, so if A was equal to -1, then your parabola might be like that. If A was equal to -2, then the parabola would be steeper. Okay, as far as Q is concerned, Q is the value of, I don't know if anybody wants to tell me this before I tell you, although it's been hard for us to talk to one another this evening so far. Onsetile in Pretoria, do you know what Q stands for? Do you know what Q represents? You're welcome to unmute your mic or type in the chat. Do you know what Q represents? The turning point. Inam, well done. Absolutely.
Sorry, just before you continue, I just want to remind everyone that for everyone who's on a laptop, so when you raise your hand, when you are called upon and you raise your hand, it doesn't reflect sometimes on our side. So just if you want, maybe you want to volunteer to answer a question, just write me on the chat button, and that way we can be able to see it on our side, because sometimes when you raise your hand, it doesn't appear. Just so Lee, when you call people, you can see everyone who's volunteering. Just
lovely. Thanks, Tula. That's perfect. Okay. So, Inam, you said there the turning point, and you are absolutely 100% correct. Q represents the turning point. That's right. The only thing that we've got to be aware of is that when we are in grade 10, and this applies to grade 10 quadratic functions only, your turning point is also going to be your Y-intercept. So this is grade 10 only. You're going to see what's going to happen next year with a parabola, where we start moving them left and right. So that's in grade 11. So for now, in grade 10, it is going to be your turning point, and that will also function as your Y-intercept. Okay, so it's important for us to know what these letters represent, because then we know what needs to be substituted where. This is when we eventually start finding the equation of. Okay, so now steps to sketching the quadratic function. All right, so there's a few things that I've written down here that you need to go through. This is like a checklist for you. All right, so when you are given a quadratic function and you are asked to sketch it, what you should jot down quickly for yourself is, number one, what is its shape? The other thing that you have to show are the X-intercepts. And the last thing that you need to show is the Y-intercept. Right, this will get you 3 marks in grade 10. All right. Now, first of all, when we talk about shape, they've given, well, I've got an example here. We're going to sketch the graph of y equals x squared minus 4. So when we're talking about shape, we recall that shape is based on the value of A. All right, so in the case of this particular graph over here, can anybody tell me what the value of A is? Oh, sorry, Tutuka, you've got some questions here that I didn't answer. Would it be fair to say the constant? Yes, Q is a constant. Okay, it's your Y-intercept as well as your turning point, so that's fine. Kele Bohile, You said you can't hear me. I don't know if you can hear me now. All right. Does anybody know what the value of A is in this particular case? The value of A, Enhle, you've said it's -4. That, my girl, or sorry, Enhle, is the value of Q. All right, the value of Q is -4. So here, when we're talking about the value of A, we're talking about the number that is in front of the X squared. So there's an invisible 1 over there. All right, so A is equal to 1 in this case. All right, Q, which doesn't have anything to do with the shape, Q is equal to -4. All right, so in the case of this over here, the value of A is the number in front of the X squared, so A is equal to 1, and the value of Q is the -4. So the -4 is going to be our Y-intercept, or as Inam told us earlier, it's going to be our turning point as well, okay? So if A is equal to 1, does this mean that this graph is a happy face? Or is it a sad face? You can type in the chat and tell me what you think. Is it a happy face or is it a sad face? So you can type the word happy or sad. Happy, Zayan. Lovely. Happy, happy. Yay. And well done, Nolwazi. Perfect. Yes. Marisa, 100%. It is a happy shaped parabola. Okay, so now we know what it needs to look like. Well done, Zanele. That's quite right. It's going to be happy. How are we going to find the X-intercepts? Does anybody know how to do that without me telling you? You can type it in the chat. Does anybody know how to find the value of the X-intercepts? Yes, Palesa, it's happy. Perfect. All right, does anybody know how we would find the X-intercepts? Or does anyone, actually, even before we start talking about finding them, does anybody know what the X-intercepts are? What does that actually mean? What do the words X-intercept mean? What does it mean for us? You can pop it in the chat. Okay, so your X-intercepts, I don't know if this is because nobody knows or if you guys are still a little bit shy, which is also fine, no problem. Your X-intercepts grade 10s are the places where the graph cuts the X-axis, all right? So this is where the function, function, not functions, where the function cuts the X-axis. So we've been taught that everywhere along the X-axis, so your X-axis is your horizontal axis. So everywhere along your X-axis, Y is equal to 0, whether I'm sitting over here, whether I'm sitting over there, whether I'm at the origin, whether I'm all the way down here. It does not matter at what point on the X-axis I'm sitting, Y is always equal to 0. So what that means for me, the rule is when I find the X-intercepts, the rule is let Y equal 0. Okay, so the rule is let Y equals 0. So now if Y is 0, they mean this Y over here. So in other words, we're going to substitute 0 is equal to X squared minus 4. And that was the reason why I chose to do now, because I was hoping that if we knew that we had to let Y be equal to 0, that we would then be able to factorize. All right, so we would be able to write this as X plus 2. Can anybody tell me what needs to go into the second bracket? Oh, Tsepo, you did say the points where the graph crosses the axis. That's perfect, Tsepo, quite right. So Tsepo, do you know what I should write in the second bracket? I've written X plus 2 in the first bracket. What should I write in the second bracket? Do you know? X minus 2. Nosisa, well done. That's right, perfect, the x minus 2. All right, well done, 100%. So now I'm back at the beginning with that do now, where either x plus 2 equals 0 or x minus 2 equals 0. You are, however, allowed to write the answers now. So either x is equal to negative 2, or the word or is very important, it's equal to positive 2. Okay, so in other words, if I want to write these as coordinates, I could write them as follows. All right, so I have got one x-intercept at negative 2 and 0. So can you see my input output? When minus 2 goes in, 0 comes out. And the other one at 2 and 0. So 2 goes in and 0 comes out. Now, the y-intercept. All right, let's move over to that. Can move these down a little bit. All right, so the y-intercept, or in this case, also our turning point, right? Can anybody tell me what the coordinates at the y-intercept are?
0.
You're right, that's the x coordinate at the y-intercept. What's the y coordinate at the y-intercept? Someone was talking to me and telling me the answer, so I'm not sure who you were. You said 0. Okay, so that would be the coordinate of x at the y-intercept. The coordinate of y would be negative 4. How do I know that? Well, just like on the x-axis, y is always equal to 0. If you're on the y-axis, x is always 0. So whether I'm up here, or whether I'm down there, or whether I'm at the origin, or if I'm a little bit further down over there, it does not matter. Everywhere that I'm along the y-axis, x is always going to be equal to 0. So now the rule is let x be equal to 0. So if we let x be equal to 0 and we used our same formula from up here, we would have y equals, substitute 0 squared minus 4. And that's why y would be equal to negative 4. All right, so that's where it comes from. So this y-intercept is also going to be our turning point. These are the 3 most important points, and we've got to plot them all in our graph. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to plot. Actually, what the easiest thing for you to do is, grade 10s, is actually put the numbers in afterwards. Now, what I do and what I tell you to do may be 2 different things, because unfortunately for me, trying to draw this graph on my Wacom board is sometimes a little bit of a challenge, but I have been practicing and I hope that I get it right. Make sure that when you draw your parabola, that it is a neat, smooth curve. All right. When we say sketch, we don't mean sketch like we're sketching a picture in art. So there's not going to be sort of lines like this, and then you're going to go down like that. It needs to be one smooth line. Okay. So as I said, what I tell you to do and what I actually managed to do myself on my Wacom board are 2 different things. Okay, so I knew that I had to draw a happy shape graph. You all told me that, right? I worked out the coordinates at the x-intercepts. So there is one x-intercept and there is the other x-intercept, right? I'm supposed to label these points. So I'm going to label the one on the left as minus 2 and 0. I'm going to label the one on the right as 2 and 0, and then I need to label my y-intercept or my turning point. Okay, so that's going to take the label 0 and negative 4. So in grade 10, you would get 3 marks for something like this. 1 mark would be for your shape. All right, 1 mark would be for your x-intercepts, and another mark would be for your y-intercept. Okay, just like that. Are there any questions? Okay, so Nuzol, you did say that. You did say minus 4. Quite right. Is there anything that anybody wants to ask me? Are we all still feeling thumbs up, happy faces? know what's going on? Will you respond in the chat to me? Are we happy to try one ourselves now? Okay, we'll see if we've got time to talk about these words. I just want to give you an opportunity to do something, and it's not all about me. All right, so can anybody tell me what's different here to what we've just seen? Yes, Marisa, it is. It's possible for you to draw more than one function on a set of axes, 100%. And that's why we give them names like f of x and g of x and h of x, so that just like us as people, we've got names to differentiate us from other things. It's exactly the same idea. So, ma'am, is it compulsory to label all the points? Yes, Tatuka, you have to label the X-intercepts and the Y-intercept. Okay, so that you do have to do. You're going to get marks for that. The Y-intercept is positive. Quite right, Zayon. The Y-intercept is positive. What else is different? What else is different, Zayon? A is negative. Perfect, Inam. Well done. 100%. So now my graph is going to be, and I want everybody to type this in the chat, is negative. Quite right. So what shape is it going to be, Tatuka? Is it going to be happy or is it going to be sad? Well done, grade 10s. That's brilliant. Yes, 100%, Enhle. Yes, Nolwazi, sad. Tatuka, sad. 100%. All right. So now, instead of me drawing the graph, I want to give you an opportunity to draw this. Is there anybody who thinks that they might not be able to do this on their own? Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. I want you to, we've already worked out the shape. We know that it's going to be sad. I'm going to give you 2 minutes and you're going to tell me what the X-intercepts are. So whoever works out the X-intercepts first, I want you to pop it into the chat for me. Okay, so you're working on this. You're going to work out what the X-intercepts are and you're going to pop it into the chat. We know that it is a sad face parabola, so we can put that in the meantime. Sad face. So if you recall, no one's put anything into the chat yet, but if you recall, the rule for the X-intercepts is let y be, I hope you're all saying 0. Has anybody put them in? Let's have a look. Ah, there we go. Tsepo, you are bang on. That's perfect. Well done. Okay, 100%. 2 and minus 2, Tsepo. Excellent. Tatuka, maybe you just didn't finish typing. You've just written 0. And I think maybe that was me asking, what do we make y equal to? And you said 0. Okay, so that's perfect. So, Tsepo, I don't know if it's possible for you to unmute yourself and for you to tell me what it is that I should do next. What should I do next? How did you factorize? If you're shy, Tsepo, don't worry, we're all in this together. Does anybody else know what they should do here? Does anybody else want to try and unmute themselves and see if you can tell me what I should be doing? No, we all shy this evening. Okay, it doesn't matter. We'll keep trying, all right? So after you have let y be equal to 0, you're allowed to do something. You are allowed to change the signs of x squared and plus 4, right? So I don't know if somebody's typed in the chat there. No one has, right? You can multiply each term in this equation by -1. So Nazal, the y-intercept is +4 as it represents q. Quite right. That is true. When I multiply through by -1, I'm going to end up with x squared minus 4. So I've multiplied 0 by -1, minus x squared by -1, and minus 4 by -1. The reason I do this is just to make things easier for me in terms of my factorizing. Now I'm going to factorize my difference of 2 squares. So one bracket will have x plus 2, the other bracket will have x minus 2, and that means, again, I've got 2 x-intercepts. I have to, all right? So either x is equal to -2, or x is going to be equal to 2 in this case. All right, so Tsepo, what you had popped onto the chat, that was 100% perfect. Those are the coordinates of the x-intercepts, all right? The y-intercept, Nazal, you've said it's +4, and you are quite right. So if I wanted to write that as a pair of coordinates, I would write it as 0 and +4. All right, so now my graph has to be a sad face. Oh, that was a little bit better. It has to be a sad face. Okay, up here, that has to be the point 0 and 4, my turning point, also my y-intercept in grade 10. Then over here, I've got to label my x-intercept. So this one will be -2 and 0 because I'm working on the left of the y-intercept. And this one over here will be +2 and 0. Okay, because I'm working to the right of the y-axis. Sorry, not intercept, the right of the y-axis. Okay, so again, that would be worth 3 marks. 1 mark for the shape, 1 mark for your x-intercepts, and 1 mark for your y-intercept. Does anybody have any other questions? So now we've drawn one that's sad face and one that's happy face. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask me before you have an opportunity to try this? Any questions? Okay, so I'm going to give you a challenge. You are going to try one of my questions now. All right. The challenge for you is to try and see if you can do 2. What I've done is I've color coordinated it. So the green is the easiest one. The purple is one that's a little bit more difficult, and the orange one is the one that's supposed to be the most difficult. So I want you to see if you can do 2. All right, you can sketch them on the same set of axes. We were talking about that a little bit earlier, and they've each got a name. So one's called F, the other one's called G, and the last one is called H. Right, so I want you to try and see if it's possible for you to do those now, and then we're going to mark them together and talk about our answers. Any questions, anybody? Can I have a thumbs up that everybody understands what to do? You're going to draw 2. Can you type a thumbs up on the chat for me? Thank you, Nolwazi. Thank you, Zayan. Thank you, Inam. Lovely, Tsepo, thank you. Okay, Nazal, lovely, awesome. Okay, so there you go, grade 10s. Your challenge is to try and draw 2. If anybody has got any questions, then please do ask me. So I'm going to let you do that, and then we're going to talk about what you've got. Thanks, Naileti. Thanks, Enhle. Are there any other questions? Is there anybody who'd like to ask me something you're not sure of? Aviwe is my first name, but I usually use Nolwazi. Okay, no problem. Would you prefer us to call you Nolwazi instead of Aviwe? Palesa, thumbs up, good stuff. So it's obviously going well. Please do ask, don't be shy. Yes, ma'am, no problem. Then Nolwazi it is. Okay, so it's been 3 minutes. I hope I'm not being irritating, but it's been almost 4 minutes. So somebody should be finished at least one by now. Yes, ma'am. Okay, Nolwazi, that's wonderful. Okay, so on to your second one. And again, remember it's shape, X-intercepts, and Y-intercept. And then you can go ahead and go and draw it. And remember, you're drawing it on the same set of axes. Just finished one. Cool, Zayon, well done. No problem, I don't mean to rush you. Kelebogile. Oh, I'm sorry. That's fine. That's no problem. Can you hear me now, Kelebogile? If you can just send me a thumbs up if you can hear me now. Kelebogile, I'm assuming that you can hear me, and I'm just going to take you through the first one because hopefully whoever's done that would have done that by now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move things around a little bit, and hopefully, yes, you can hear me. All right, brilliant. Okay, so Kelebogile, the first thing that you want to do is you want to write down on your page, you want to write down f of x or y equals x squared minus 9. And can you view my camera on your side? I think I'm experiencing camera problems. Tutuka, I must be honest with you, I'm not sure how to view that on my side. Maybe Tula can help us. Tula, do you know how to answer Tutuka?
It seems to be blank, Tutuka. I can see that your camera is on, but it's black. But if you don't manage to get it back on, that's okay. As long as you can hear and see the teacher and the screen, it's okay.
Okay, so everybody else continue with what you're doing. I'm just talking to Kelebogile for a couple of minutes, and if you do want to listen, that's fine, but hopefully everybody's able to draw these functions and we can mark them now and then talk about a couple of other things. So Kelebogile, this writing over here, f of x, is really absolutely the same as writing y. So f of x means that x is a function of y, and it's the same as writing y. Right? So we've got the function y equals x squared minus 9. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to go back and look at this and say to ourselves, this is in the form y equals ax squared plus q. If we now apply what we see in red to the green, what number is in front of the x squared in the green? It's an invisible number. You're welcome to pop it into the chat or tell me if you want to unmute your mic. Perfect. All right, 100%. It's a 1. Quite right. So A is equal to 1. There's the invisible 1, the invisible man standing. Okay. What is the value of Q in the case of this question? Do you know, Kelebogile? So the value of the y-intercept and also your turning point in grade 10. So that's the constant, the number that's on its own. That's going to be the -9. Yes, on Fatile, perfect, quite right. It's going to be the -9. So Q is equal to -9. It's important for us to know the value of A because that tells us what shape parabola we need to be drawing. So Kelebogile, the next thing that you want to do is you want to look at the value of A and you say A is equal to 1, so it's positive. So that means that this graph needs to be a happy face. All right, that's what it's got to look like. And it's got to have 2 x-intercepts and it's got to have 1 y-intercept. So in other words, there's got to be 2 places where it cuts the x-axis, that's the horizontal axis, and there's got to be 1 place where it cuts the y-axis. All right, so after you've done that, finding your x-intercepts and your y-intercepts are important. So what we do for our, let's see if we can shift this over, right? We would do this. Our shape is equal to 1. A is positive. When we want to find the x-intercepts, the rule is let y be 0. So in place of f of x or y, I'm writing 0 equals x squared minus 9. Then, Kelebogile, you are going to factorize difference of 2 squares. So x squared minus 9 factorizes into x plus 3, x minus 3. So that means you have one x-intercept at -3, or you have another x-intercept at 3. I hope this is making sense, Kelebogile. Then we're going to apply the other rule that we were talking about. If we want to find our y-intercept, we're going to let x be equal to 0. So we're subbing in x is equal to 0 into our formula, and our y-intercept or our turning point is going to be -9. Kelebogile, does that make a little bit more sense? Did you follow what I was saying? Yes, ma'am. Okay, perfect. All right, so Kelebogile, see if you can now draw the graph without me doing it for you. And then remember to label your x-intercepts and your y-intercept. Okay, so while Kelebogile is carrying on with that, how's everybody else doing? Can you pop me a message into the chat? Are you finished? Okay, Marisa, that's fine, no problem. If there's any other questions you want to ask me, then please do. I wonder why you got -8. Did you say 1 minus 9? I wonder why you got -8 as an answer. Marisa. Done with the last 2. Okay, Tsepo, that's great. Well done. Brilliant. So you've done 3 of them. Or maybe you just did the purple and the orange. Inam, done with the first 2. Good. Lovely. Well done. I missed a step. Okay. All right, Tandeka. Purple and orange, Tsepo, good. Well done. Tandeka, perfect. You're done with the first two. Excellent. So I'm just going to give a couple more people to try, an opportunity to try, and then in another minute we can talk about what the answers should be and of course what they look like. If you did do the green one, then there it is in front of you. You would obviously be able to mark that. Just while we're waiting for everybody just to be finished, Marisa, you said that you missed a step. Do you know which step you missed? Do you know where you went wrong? Is there anything you need me to help you with? Okay, so Marisa, I'm waiting to hear from you. If you do want to ask me, then I'm here to answer your question. All right, so it's getting close to 6 o'clock. We've only got 7 minutes to go. So I think we should start marking these. All right, and most of you are finished anyway. All right, so I'm going to move this gray block out the way. And I don't know why there is this yellow line over here. Don't know where it comes from. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so what I've done is I've color coordinated it for you. I thought that that would be the best thing, all right, so that you could clearly see which writing went with which graph. So now you can mark your work. All right, so if you did the purple one and the orange one, you can mark it. Are there any questions? Did anybody get a different answer to me? Purple one, yes, I did not understand how to identify the intercepts. Okay. All right, so are you having difficulty hearing me properly, Palisa? We're going to have to speak to the technical people and see what we can do about that. From Enam, can ma'am explain the third one? Yes, with pleasure, Enam. Let me do that right now. Okay, so I was trying to get rid of this yellow mark, which has appeared here. I don't know where it came from. So what I'm going to do now, grade 10, is I'm just going to move it over so that the purple and the orange one are here in the middle of the screen. And of course, when I was trying to wipe out that orange mark, some of the writing disappeared, didn't it? Okay, so maybe that's why we've been a little bit confused. Okie dokes. All right. So what happened here with the orange one is this, all right? In order to first work out the shape, we can see that the value of the number of A is equal to 2. So because 2 is a positive number, it means that the graph is going to be a smiley face one. Our rule for the x-intercept, let y be equal to 0. Now, what needs to happen first before you can factorize your difference of two squares is you need to divide through by 2. Can you see that we could take 2 out of the first term and we could take 2 out of the second term? So what we do is, just like we're able to divide through by -1, which is what we've done in this step over here, I've divided through by -1. So I'm allowed to divide through by 2. So 0 divided by 2 is 0. 2x squared divided by 2 is x squared. And -8 divided by 2 is -4. All right. Now I can factorize my difference of two squares. So I've done that in this line over here. And therefore, either x is equal to -2. Whoopsie. That's a terrible -2. Or x will be equal to 2. So those are going to be my x-intercepts. Then for my y-intercept, sorry, unfortunately here it also got rubbed out. So y is going to be equal to, replace x with 0. So over here, this 0 there is the one that I'm replacing with 0. Sorry, there should be a 2 in the front as well. And then that means that 0 squared times 2 is 0, and 0 minus 8 is -8. Okay, so that's where that one comes from. That's why that one was an orange. Okay, can you please explain the third one? Nolwazi, I just have. I hope that that's okay, Nolwazi and Inam. On Theta, do we have to show the positive sign on our answer, or can you just write it as a number on its own? On Theta, what are you referring to? If you're talking about, if you're writing a positive number, that's the only time that you don't have to write a plus in front of it. So like I've written x is equal to -2 or 2, when I write 2, I am implying or I mean +2. So if you write a number and you don't put a sign in front of it, whoever's marking your work is going to presume you mean positive. If you mean a negative, you have to write the negative. Okay, I hope that answers that question. Okay, so Inam, you've said, okay, got it. All right, we're nearly there. 2 minutes to go. Now let's have a look. Now what I did, grade 10s, is I plotted everything on the same set of axes. But again, I've color coordinated it for you so that you would be able to mark it. And can you see I've labeled each function? So there's F. You can see I've labeled -3 and 3, and its turning point or y-intercept at 0 and -9. Then as far as H is concerned, I've labeled its X-intercepts at -2 and 2, and its y-intercept at -8. And then if anybody did graph G, that was the only sad face, right? There's the y-intercept at 0 and 16, an X-intercept at -4, and another X-intercept at +4. Okay, so there's 1 minute to go. Please, can you tell me how you felt, if you understand this, if it's making sense? You can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat. Or if there are any questions, then please do. Zion, you understand it a bit better. I'm pleased. Thanks, Zion. I'm glad about that. Faith, that's a thumbs up. Lovely. Thank you, Faith. Anybody else about how you feel? You'll do some more practice, Marisa. Yes, and you can use the app, the homework, to do that. Okay, Marisa? Thank you, ma'am. It's a pleasure, Zayan. It's all very clear. I'm so glad. You understand it, Nolwazi. Excellent. On Fatile, you want to ask a question? You think with some practice it will be good? Absolutely. Now that you know what to do, you have to go and practice. So do the homework on the app tonight, or you have to do it tonight, but before our next lesson, and that will definitely help you. It's a pleasure, Zanele. Absolute pleasure to help you. No problem. Pleasure, Marisa. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, grade 10s, and then we'll see you again on Thursday evening at the same time. Zeb will still need more practice. Great. Okay, so that's why it's good that we've set homework.